Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Chamber's Pulse March virtual luncheon. We've got a very special guest, a very special program. I know some of you continue to roll in here. I see the numbers on the rise, but we certainly want to stay on time and give our speaker plenty of time to chat, and then, of course, engage with you with some questions and answers. But my name is Troy McClellan, and I am the president and CEO of the Boca Chamber. I'm excited about today and about our guests, but I'm also excited about this group. Our professionals under 40, our pulsers, we call it, have been around for a long time and are doing great things in our community and give us a lot of confidence that as business moves forward, we've got some younger professionals out there moving that needle for us. So I certainly want to thank you all for participating in all of our Pulse events and other chamber events as well. I want to thank the Pulse Committee for your leadership and engagement, and of course your chairman and the Boca Chamber's board member, Jordan Sherwood, for his leadership and all he's done for that. So your chairman's going to give our guest speaker a proper introduction because he's got a very long and amazing bio. But I'd like to add a few comments about Dan Kane, our speaker today, personally, before I turn it over and we get the program started. So Dan is also a member on the Boca Chamber Board of Directors as well, and we very much appreciate his commitment and leadership to the mission of the Chamber of Commerce. And so Dan, you're gonna hear the bio, but Dan is an amazingly successful entrepreneur. I can't emphasize that word enough. But he's also a local entrepreneur as well, and we take additional pride in the fact that Dan is a local, South Palm Beach County guy. And has decided to remain in South Palm Beach County in Boca Raton with his beautiful headquarters and his newest venture, Modernizing Medicine, which you'll hear all about. But Dan is also very much into making sure that the community is taken care of. And so, in addition to his amazing business success that you're going to hear about and listen in a moment, Dan's very engaged in making sure that Boca Raton, where he lives and where his current business is taken care of. So we appreciate his generosity, his philanthropic nature that he has about him. Dan also is involved in the Chamber's Golden Bell Education Foundation's Young Entrepreneur Academy program as well. Since he is the model of being a successful entrepreneur, Dan supports that cause, and he's been working with us and supporting our EA program now for a very, very long time. And so we certainly appreciate that as well. Dan's latest venture, Modernizing Medicine, is just another, awesome story about a concept and serving a need and taking a brilliant entrepreneurial mind and creating what is now the very successful company called Modernizing Medicine, proudly here in Boca Raton. So Dan, thank you for sharing some time with us today with this group, some existing and maybe future entrepreneurs in our midst here today. And I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of questions, hopefully at the end. This group is fairly inquisitive, and when we get to have you in our grasp on a Zoom like this, we may get a few questions, and Chairman Sherwood's gonna monitor that along the way. But I just wanted to be on this call and listen. I can never listen to Dan Kane enough, and I'm always smarter after I've listened to him than I was before I started. So appreciate your time today. You look great. We can't wait till we can do this in person and shake a hand. We're getting there. The light at the end of the tunnel is getting brighter and brighter. So thanks for today being here and talking to the group. So with that, Jordan, I'll turn it back over to you for your chair's comments and then an introduction of our guest speaker. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Troy, and thanks for that introduction. Yeah, I think we're all getting closer to these in-person events, the return to normalcy. And obviously, you know, as your chair, you know, I make these opening remarks, and I do have to have the one proverbial sports comment. You can see Troy's not only excited about the fact that Dan is joining us today to hear from one of our great community leaders, but the Patriots have been extremely active in free agency. I'm sure that he's very supportive of the move.
They sure have, baby. They sure have.
That the moves that they have made. But look, you know, it's absolutely great for everybody that took the time to join today. And you know, we're going to hear from, as I just mentioned, one of our great speakers, one of our great community leaders, and someone that's been really active in our community. And Troy is right. I mean, this man's resume and bio is extremely well detailed and impressive. So I wanted to introduce our guest speaker, Dan Kane, the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Modernizing Medicine. It's a healthcare IT company that is transforming healthcare through specialty-specific intelligent platforms that increase practice efficiency and improve patient outcomes. It was founded in February of 2010, and Modernizing Medicine has grown to over 950 employees and has raised over $332 million in total investment. It's known for its progressive growth as a medical technology company, and Modernizing Medicine is frequently recognized both nationally and regionally for its achievements under Daniel's leadership. In 2020, the company was named one of the best workplaces in the country by Inc. magazine. And between 2016 and 2018, the company was named one of the fastest growing companies in North America by the Lighting Technology Fast 500 list. Starting in 2015, the company has been named annually to the exclusive Inc. 5000 list, a prestigious compilation of fastest growing private companies in the country. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce named Modernizing Medicine the Small Business of the Year regional finalist, as well as honoring Daniel and Chief Medical and Strategy Officer and co-founder, Dr. Michael Sherling, with the Leadership in Healthcare Award. The South Florida Business Journal also selected Modernizing Medicine as the Business of the Year in 2012, 2015, and 2018. Daniel has received numerous personal accolades during his tenure at Modernizing Medicine. In 2016, the South Florida Business Journal named Daniel as the South Florida Ultimate CEO. 2015, he was named EY Entrepreneur of the Year. 2014, the Sun Sentinel announced that Daniel earned the title of Excalibur Awards Palm Beach Small Business Leader of the Year for 2013. He was named a Palm Beach County Ultimate CEO by the South Florida Business Journal and CEO of the Year by CEO World. As an entrepreneur, Daniel has a BS in Applied Economics from Cornell University, where as an undergraduate, he co-founded Blackboard Inc. and raised over $100 million in venture capital, and in 2014, helped take the company public on the NASDAQ. 2011, Blackboard was sold for $1.6 billion. He's active in his community. He serves on the board of trustees at the Florida Atlantic University, and as a trustee at the South Florida Science Center and Aquarium, and at the Boca Raton Chamber of Commerce. He's also a member of the Cornell University Council, and in 2018 helped establish the Kane Institute for Advanced Technologies at Henderson FAU High. Probably the most importantly, Daniel works, lives, and enjoys life in Boca Raton with his wife and 3 children. So tremendous amounts of things to talk about today, Daniel, and we appreciate your time. Daniel Kane, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you, Troy. I seriously need to edit that down somehow. It's definitely getting too long. So hello, everyone. Dan Kane. It's my pleasure to be back doing a Pulse CEO Connect. I did one of these in 2015, and it was awesome. I should actually have presented that deck instead of this deck, because at that time we were 200 employees and we just raised 10 million of capital, and we were just kind of getting started. And every stage is my favorite stage. And I tell that to my company. I also tell that to my kids, that every stage has to be your favorite stage, whatever stage of growth you're in, whatever stage of development the company is in, you know, that needs to be the one that you're enjoying, because it changes so much so quickly. And it's part of what I really love of being an entrepreneur. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Great. Someone give me a thumbs up. Are we seeing the screen? Perfect. Thank you. All right. And I really want to make this more interactive. And I think the way to accomplish that in Zoom is really to get through the presentation part as quickly as possible and make it much more dynamic and QA based and interactive, just around answering your questions, because there's a lot of different directions we can go in. I myself just turned 44, so I won't qualify for Pulse. Last time I did, I was 39, but now I don't qualify anymore for the under 40. But I'm still a relatively young entrepreneur, and I started my first companies when I was in my early 20s. As a matter of fact, Blackboard's first $1 million contract, I wasn't 21 yet, so I couldn't go celebrating with the rest of the team, which was a little disappointing. But it's been such a fun journey, and I've learned so many things about what to do, and most importantly, what not to do along the way. And it's great to be able to share some of that. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, a little bit about modernizing medicine, and then hopefully get to answering your questions. And along the way, I also want to talk about why Boca, because Boca was very intentional. For some stats that I actually looked up the latest so I could share the latest and greatest with you. So my journey, first of all, I'm local here. I grew up in Lake Worth and went to Lake Worth High School. So, I mean, I was about as local as you can get. Big fan of the public education system, and then fixing whatever I find along the way that is broken, rather than taking shortcuts. And so I'm very proud of creating the Kane Institute at AD Henderson. For those of you, I think most of you in Boca know Henderson at FAU. It's one of our gems, one of our absolute gems in Boca. It's a national, it should be followed nationally. That program, the way of affiliating with the university, creating a lab school, and then doing things like FAU High School that get to take advantage of the university, is a model for how other universities should be doing their education all over the country. I went from Lake Worth High to Cornell University, where as an undergraduate, I did found Blackboard. And I won't go into the whole Blackboard story, but like all entrepreneurs, I saw things that didn't seem to be the right way to do it. And when I was a student, I mean, to kind of rewind the tape back in time, I'm a student sitting in classrooms in the mid 90s. And the mid 90s, we didn't have the web yet. So many of you may not remember pre-web, but there wasn't a graphical internet. We had text-based systems for exchanging information, things called Gopher and links, and I won't get into all that. But my freshman year, the first web browser came out, and it was Mosaic was what it was called. And I said that this is going to change how we teach and learn. And when it didn't, I started to get very frustrated. And so I went to a professor in a stats class, and I said, I have a great idea. You give me the content. I will put them in a place where we can all access it, either from our dorm rooms or the libraries. We can print the content, and we can have much better informed discussion, because I can't keep up just with the note taking. It was a big stats class, and it was heavy on note taking. And she was one of these professors that had twin overhead projectors. This is, I don't want to say pre-PowerPoint, but PowerPoint wasn't used by everyone back then. And she would sit there with this rolling projector and just had a infinite roll of transparency she would be scribbling on. And I said, we can do better than this. And so I took her notes, digitized them, and then put them into a place. And then I told the class, here's how you access the course materials and print them out. And over the course of that semester, it went from a repository of course information to I added some interactivity and discussion boards, and made it so we could submit our assignments online rather than having to trek through the snow. I think it's very snowy, and turn assignments in. Long story short, it was a huge hit for the class and for the professor, who said that this is really changing how we do teaching and learning. Next semester rolls along, all my professors are like, oh, you're that Kane guy who did this website. Could you do it for my class? And so I said, sure. Always good to be close to your teachers. And what I didn't anticipate was that the demand from the rest of the department would far outstrip my ability to supply manually building websites for courses. So I enlisted my housemates, and I said, I have a way for us to make some money. We'll build these class websites for 100 plus classes, but it was all email based. They were emailing us answer keys and assignments and changes and update this announcement. And we were all just making these website changes by hand. And pretty soon we wrote tools internally to help us automate the tasks of keeping all these things up to date. And pretty soon the tools got good enough for us to start to say, well, if you want to just update your own announcement, here's a form on a website, here's how you log into it, change your own announcement. And then we got to the place where they could manage their own course documents and assignments and discussions, and it just sort of grew. Before long, other universities got to see what we were building at Cornell and said, we want that here, and the rest is kind of history. So it went one class, a handful of classes, a department, a college, the entire university, all within about 2.5 semesters. And then other universities all over the world said, we want that for our classes here. Blackboard ended up growing to We raised well over 100 million. Actually, it was closer to 300 million for Blackboard. Took the company public on the NASDAQ, grew it to several thousand employees, ran out of schools in the US to sell Blackboard to, took it international, brought it into over 120 countries in 22 different languages, set up offices all over the world. And it was the most expensive MBA I could ever pay for because it was all dilution every time I raised capital. But it was magnificent. And I learned so much about scaling a business. And I think that the thing I learned the most about my Blackboard journey is that great entrepreneurs are built, not born. Innovators are born, right? People with that spirit, that entrepreneurial spirit, that comes from within, that's innate. But then knowing what to do with it, knowing how to turn an idea into a business and all the steps in between, right? To go from a concept to a prototype to a product to a company, those things are taught and learned. And either you learn them by screwing it up enough to you finally getting it figured out, which is sort of my path, or someone teaches it to you. And what's great is there are entrepreneurship classes at universities and online. You can get degrees in business today that actually teach you the differences in corporate structure between an S Corp and an LLC and a C Corp, the tax advantages of being in Florida versus California and New York, the hiring guidelines for bringing in different types of employees, the risk factors for different types of businesses. Like there's so much you can learn now rather than having to learn it all on the street. And the street's not a bad place to learn. It just can get expensive and time consuming and you make a lot of mistakes. And as long as you're learning fast from your mistakes and failing fast, you're going to do just fine. But after Blackboard, and Blackboard, by the way, wasn't based in Ithaca because nothing's in Ithaca except Cornell and Ithaca College. Great little town for university, but not where you want to build a business. To build a business, you need talent, and talent, you get a lot of young talent out of a university, but you don't get all the other resources you need to bathe your company in, resources like capital, resources like accounting and finance and marketing and all the things you need to build and bill and collect, right? That's what every business does. So we moved Blackboard. I accelerated my degree, barely graduated, and then escaped to Washington, DC, where Blackboard grew. That was our headquarters there. And it was great. I loved Washington, DC, but it wasn't South Florida for a number of reasons. So I knew as soon as we had taken Blackboard public, that I would only be there for a couple more years. I met my wife, we started to have some kids, and I realized I needed to get closer to home, and home is South Florida. And so when Blackboard was sold and taken private, I used that opportunity to move back to South Florida for a number of reasons. I knew I wanted to do another company. Didn't know exactly what I wanted to do the company in, but I knew I wanted another company. But Florida is the third largest state for high tech. We are actually really good at tech startup. We're not as good at tech scale up, but we're really good at tech startup. And as more companies like Modernizing Medicine scale up, it attracts the right type of executives to be able to do more scale ups in the community. And certainly Modernizing Medicine isn't alone. You've got, the Office Depots and Citrix and Magic Leaps and Ultimate Softwares. And there's I could go on and on about all the great companies that have scaled up in South Florida, but there's plenty of resources here. We're the third largest exporter of high-tech products in the country. We have over 26,000 IT companies, 69 colleges and universities. And that, more than anything else I put on the slide, is the key. That is what generates your raw product, right? Your talent is your input, right? Especially for a tech company. It's all about people. People create my product. And then that's what I use to go out and sell it. And people sell it and support it and implement it and so on. But it's all about people. And Boca is both literally and proverbially the epicenter, right? So my office is located in Brick, the Boca Raton Innovation Center. I think Gianna was on here, so hopefully she's glowing right now. This is a unique asset. It's 1.8, 1.9, something like that, million square feet of office space. And this was the original campus where IBM invented the PC and created the first smartphone and created text-to-speech and did all these other amazing things in the 70s and 80s. So the history of Boca as a culture of innovation goes all the way back to the earliest founding of Boca. As a matter of fact, what made Boca Boca was the Army Air Corps. So what is now FAU, where you see an executive airport, in World War II is created into an Air Force base or an Army Air Corps base, where radar was really pioneered and used to hunt subs. And there's all sorts of amazing history. If you're interested in that sort of geeky stuff, history geek, you should do the PBS special, Boca Raton, the secret weapon that won World War II. I know that sounds hokey. It's amazing. and to know that we had like German U-boats right off our coast, and even one of the houses here in Boca theoretically had spies, allegedly had spies, Nazi spies who were doing all sorts of things, looking at the radar and awesome stuff. Anyway, but physically, Boca is the epicenter, right? So you want to draw from as much talent as possible when you're creating a company. Boca is 45 minutes to Miami, 45 miles to Jupiter, right? And so I get to draw from the largest talent pool possible, including dozens of universities in that radius, to be able to build a modernizing medicine. So that's some of the reasons why Florida, but even more importantly, let me just get all this on the screen. Oop, there it goes. I think all of it's there. And I need to hide my little guys. There it goes. How do I hide that? So business reasons why, right? Personal income tax, corporate tax, the business state tax climate rating, right? So taxes aren't the only thing you should be thinking about when you're starting a business, but you should certainly think about taxes and the buying power of your salaries. So when you look at the average wages in Florida, they are lower wages, but the buying power is higher because you don't have the same tax base. And so you end up as a CEO founder, you don't have to pay as much, but what your employees can do with it is more. And so you're in this fantastic sort of vortex, wage vortex, where you can do so much with your limited resources versus a place like California, where you're just paying more and then your employees are paying more and no one's benefiting from that except the state itself. And so Florida has figured out through a combination of good planning and some good luck, that real estate taxes, property taxes are a great way to have an income base, especially when you have people that are living part-time in the year, but they're paying tax full-time because their property's here full-time, really works well. So the combination of property taxes and tourism and income, or state tax, sales tax really is what drives a lot of this. So when you compare the cost of building in Florida versus the cost of building in almost any place else, Florida is really one of the best in the country to do it. Texas is also pretty good. And what we're seeing is a lot of companies relocate from New York to Florida, and a lot of companies go from California to Texas and to Florida, but more staying in that region. And so that's an interesting exodus from the high tax states to the lower tax states for good reasons. And again, tax isn't the only reason, but it's one of the most important to look at. Okay, talk for just a couple minutes about ModMed, and then I want to watch the clock to make sure I save lots of time for Q&A, because I find that's where I think you get the most. So quick things on ModMed. You heard about the mission of the company. The vision is really philanthropic. We want to improve the health, happiness, and well-being of all of our providers and their patients. Modernizing Medicine, as you'll see, has hundreds of millions of patients on the platform. We have over 2/3 the country who touch Modernizing Medicine. Chances are really good that you've seen a physician who uses Modernizing Medicine. And if you have, they're probably happy. They're probably really happy. Technology mostly misses the mark today in healthcare, and it's really sad. It's the largest part of our GDP. It's $4 trillion a year spent on healthcare. The segment of the market Modernizing Medicine plays in is a $27 billion annual spend for healthcare IT, revenue cycle management, and payments. So it's a huge annual market. Modernizing Medicine is over 200 million revenue, so we're barely scratching 1% of our total addressable market in this massive $4 trillion healthcare IT market, or healthcare market. So what's wrong with it today? Well, 88% is one size fits all, meaning software was created and they sell it to everyone, whether you're a specialist, a generalist, an internist, a pediatrician, a podiatrist, doesn't matter. 97% is legacy. It's on-prem, it's installed client server applications, it's servers in closets and dumb terminals, and it's horrible. The average net promoter score for electronic health records is a -45. Just NPS in perspective, -45 is like Comcast level. I don't want to disparage Comcast. They've actually gotten better, but it's that level of like customer service that you loathe, the -45. To put it in perspective, a +7 is the average NPS for the Fortune 100. So this is really negative. People do not like healthcare technology software because the software is inefficient, right? It's taking them 31 minutes a patient, of which 19 is spent typing on the electronic health record. That leads to physician burnout, inefficient workflows, and lots of increased hiring and overhead for the practice. So what do? Well, we came in with a comprehensive end-to-end specialty-specific SaaS solution, a software as a service solution, which was EHR and practice management, payments and analytics and telemedicine and pathology and image management, inventory management, everything they need, all delivered on the form factor they want, and they have nothing to install, right? So this is all native iPad applications, native Android and iOS applications, Apple Watch applications that work the way a modern, built in 2021 system would operate. And our providers don't have to know anything about technology. They just need to know what's their login and they access it, and it gives them high scale, high performance, high speed, everything they're looking for. It's powered by unstoppable forces. Let me get them all on here. The first is cloud, the second is mobile, and the third is AI. And when you're moving the immovable object, you need to hit it with unstoppable forces. And it's really at the intersection of these that the magic happens. So where cloud meets mobile is the third era of computing, right? We had a mainframe era, a client server era, now you're in the cloud mobile era. And if you think about the things you do on a daily basis, it's probably some combination of cloud-based system that you're accessing from a mobile type device. And whether that's your banking system or your shopping system or your dating system or whatever your system is, chances are that it's some combination of those, and that's modern technology. Everything that isn't that is legacy. And so again, the overwhelming majority of what we compete against is legacy technology. But things get really fascinating when you put AI in the picture, because if you combine mobile and AI, think about this for a second, right? So I'm a physician, I've got my iPad, and I'm touching information in. I'm taking a history and I'm doing an exam. And when I do my exam, well, the chances are that exam is going to match what the patient history is about. So the patient comes in with a certain, rash on their skin. I'm going to examine where that rash is. And my findings are going to be based on that examination. And my diagnosis is going to be based on my findings. And what I prescribe, what labs I order when I do a procedure, if I'm going to biopsy something, are all dependent on that diagnosis and who I am as the physician. So we don't know what's going to be prescribed day zero when they have the application. We know what everyone else is prescribed for the similar type of rash for a similar type of patient. But what we do is we watch what that provider does and we get in their head. And we create a feedback loop where the AI is anticipating what the doctors are going to do. And they're looking and saying, okay, what is she going to do this time? And it turns out doctors are super consistent. We never know exactly which prescription they're going to write, but it's always one of these three. We don't know, exactly which lab they're going to order, but it's always one of these five. We don't know exactly what words they're going to use to describe it, but it's always one of these five. And so we get in their heads, and it turns out they're super consistent when they do their procedures. They always use a certain scalpel, certain suture, certain anesthesia, certain volumes. And so we start to adapt and anticipate. We build these smart systems that close the feedback loop. And what that does is save a tremendous amount of time because the software is anticipating what's happening. And where cloud meets AI, you get wisdom. Right, we've seen hundreds of millions of patients. We know exactly what other physicians have done to treat patients like the one in front of that doctor. And so we make these very wise systems, and our doctors can see at the point of care what every other physician has done to treat a similar patient. And that leads to better outcomes. And at the epicenter of all of that is modernizing medicine, harnessing the collective power of these unstoppable forces to move the immovable object. So specialty-specific applications, all touch-based. We hire all these brilliant physicians and teach them how to code. That's a story for another time, but it turns out Michael tried to teach me, my co-founder, dermatology. I didn't go to med school and I didn't do a residency. I have no idea what he's talking about or how to spell anything. And so I said, I have a great idea. You can't teach me derm, but I can teach you how to code. Turns out you can take brilliant, Harvard trained physicians and teach them how to program, and they become magnificent at expressing their knowledge to a computer. So we've done that in all of our specialties. We hired over 20 physicians and taught them how to program. All that intelligence drives the AI, all that automation saves time. And then we continuously innovate. We add new specialties, we add new capabilities, we add new platforms, we move into adjacencies. It is a complete end-to-end platform. So it's everything they need to manage their practice, from billing and coding, all the way through documentation, e-prescribing, labs, pathology, you name it. It has an award-winning user interface. I feel like every year we win different sets of awards for the usability of the application. By the way, the usability, the UX of something is the most important feature of any application. So it has to be usable and it has to be fast. And those are the things people really care about. And here you can see these are actual just screenshots of the application. Nothing's been sort of touched up or photoshopped. And then we can adapt. When COVID hit, we pivoted on a dime to give our users real-time synchronous telemedicine for free. And they needed it. And it was both the right thing to do and it was self-serving, because if they're not seeing patients, they're not generating revenue. If they don't generate revenue long enough, they're going to stop paying their bills for their software. And so immediately I'm like, look, you need to see your patients. COVID is dangerous. Let's give you a way to see your patients safely, and gave them this real-time synchronous 4K telemedicine solution. Couple quick stats: over 20,000 subscriptions, 230 million patients, 300 million encounters. We've treated over 1 billion things on our platform. And all this is structured data. That's why the AI is so good. It has just seen everything, is we don't try to sell our software everywhere. We sell it in certain specialties, and we get really, really good at building the AI around them. So we started off just in dermatology, expanded to opth, then added ortho, added more products, more capabilities, more specialties. And over time, we've done many acquisitions that also have added to the Modernizing Medicine family of products and solutions and to our customer base. Being really good at a handful of things is way better than being kind of good at everything. We are the #1 rated system in every specialty that we serve for multiple consecutive years, and this is massively differentiating. It's translated into huge growth, company growing at more than 20% and adding the biggest practices in the entire US. We are over 200 million of recurring revenue. 20% of our revenue grows each year, at least 20%. We've been profitable the last 8 quarters, and 90% of our growth is all in recurring or reoccurring revenue streams, so highly predictable. And these are the stats that any financial analyst looks at and says, these are the hallmarks and tenets of a great company. We're now over 1,000 employees. So since the bio was updated, we added at least 50. We've added over 150 people this year alone in the first 3 months of the year. We were Inc. magazine's one of the best places to work in the country. We have an employee NPS of +73. That's off the charts. And it's because we believe in these core values of creating customer delight, saving time, innovating boldly, then making things happen, aligning passion with purpose, and thinking big, having fun, and doing good. That is a picture of our office with brick in the background. So again, Gian is probably giggling at all this great stuff. Okay, I did what I said, and I saved lots of time for Q&A because I'd much rather answer your questions, and I just don't know what you're interested in, whether it's founding a company, scaling a company, raising capital, taking companies public. I've kind of done a little bit of all of it, and so I've made enough mistakes that I feel qualified to answer some of your questions.
No,
So
that was
Jordan,
great,
how do we
Dan.
do this?
Yeah, no, that was great and awesome. Thank you for the time and the peek behind the curtain, a little bit of your backstory and kind of where everything is going with modernizing medicine. So for those that want to ask a question to Dan, if you just click below on the participants tab, then you'll see a slide on your right open up. You can raise your hand and feel free to click it, and then we'll call on you to ask. We want to make this kind of as similar to an in-person event as possible. So I'll ask the first question just to get us going. You talked about kind of like the timeline of a bunch of different developments and focuses throughout modernizing medicine. And taking aside, obviously, I think we're all looking forward to just getting back to some normalcy and getting back to together. So what are you looking forward to outside of that? What has you excited maybe from a technology standpoint or, something else that you're looking forward to this year or in the next few years?
So I'm really looking forward to meeting over 300 employees that I've never met. We hired over 200 people last year, over 100 this year. We'll hire at least 200 more. And so from the most important thing I do is lead the culture, right? I set the direction, right? I have a vision, my co-founder has a vision, and it's up to the team, the 1,000 people to make it happen. And so I'm so looking forward to meeting the rest of the organization. I've met them all virtually. I still to this day do every orientation at Modernizing Medicine because it's so important for the people in the company to see that the CEO takes time to get to know them. I do open door days every month in the company. So that's what I'm looking forward to, is getting back in person, seeing people, going out for, we used to, and we'll get back to this, we used to cater lunches for the company, the whole company, right? We used to cater breakfast once a week for the whole company. And that notion of coming together is not only so important and so cross-departmental, but when you break bread with someone, you have a meal with someone, you get to know them, right? It's a lot of it's some work-related conversations, but most of the time you're just getting to know that person. And that helps, again, reinforce this culture so much. And so we really do, while there's 1,000 of us, take the time to do a lot of less formal activities where we get to meet each other and get to know each other and spend time together. And I'm really looking forward to getting back to some of that. And then the extended Modernizing Medicine, our families, having events where we can get all the kids together and do carnivals and picnics and just there's something I miss people. I really miss people. So we'll get back to it soon.
Awesome. Thank you for that. It looks like Dave Morantz has a question. Dave, you want to unmute yourself? Go ahead and ask a question.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. And I think everybody here has a Dan Kane story. I have 2 quick ones. I met Dan when he was honored at the Research Park as the Entrepreneur of the Year, and we had a quick conversation. And he shared with me with an elected official at Deerfield that he had just got off the phone with his wife, and she was amazed at how nice the people were in Deerfield Beach. That conversation led to me getting an appointment with Dan some 6 weeks later and it was 15 minutes. And I sent some talking points, and he crossed out 4 of the 5. And the one, and Dan, this is the question, you had mentioned to me on that call that the biggest need from workforce development was, and I don't want to refer to them as soft skills because they're not soft skills, but collaborative skills between the brightest and the best that you hire, and to bridge the gap it took for these widely independent brainiacs, that's my term, not your term, to learn how to work with each other. Can you tell us your successes? Because I'm sure you've attacked that challenge, and what we can as a business community support from the workforce training people we deal with, either on the state and the county level, or even with the state colleges and the larger universities.
Sure. Yeah. So not to put too fine a point on it, but the problems of today are too complex for an individual to solve. You need to have bigger teams, and it needs to be highly collaborative. And those people need to not only work together to solve a product, or to build a product or solve a problem, but they need to involve the customer in the journey. They need to understand usability. They need to understand the sales process, account management, and the entire life cycle. And those soft skills, the ability to communicate and collaborate, understanding what's appropriate in the moment. So when do you resort to email versus a video call versus a text chat, versus, I mean, just knowing how to do that, and knowing how to articulate an idea. So, some of you have probably heard, like, Amazon has banned PowerPoint, right? And they don't do agendas. They do these 2-page stories, and you tell a story. Right. And if you can't articulate it in the 2 pages, they throw it away and say, go back and do it again. And so the companies like Modernizing Medicine need people who can paint a vision and articulate a story and collaborate together. And so it's not the, technical engineering skill. It's not the, sales skill or the marketing skill. We need those too, but we also need the skills for collaboration and communication. And I took the same concern I was seeing back to the universities. I was vice chair of the board of trustees at FAU prior to me getting reappointed now by Governor DeSantis. And the university worked on this, actively, to make sure that the graduates from FAU were doing cornerstone projects, or capstone projects rather, where they had these forced collaborations where they had to do something big and it had to be cross-functional. And I was just seeing these brilliant collaborations between engineering and sociology, or psych and computer science and electrical engineering, and it was just amazing, because that's how it works in the real world. So I think it's getting solved, but it's something that we look for. Most engineers, when they apply for a job, aren't used to being asked for a writing sample. I need to see if you can write, and can you communicate? And luckily the tools have also come a long way. For those of you who don't use Grammarly, you all should be using Grammarly. It will change your life if you're not a great writer. Its suggestions have gotten so good at helping you it's not just fixing grammar, it's helping you re-articulate more concisely. And so again, just a wonderful tool that, we encourage people to look at those types of things.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Dan. Familiar face, our friend from Lynn University. Laura, your question.
Thanks, Jordan. Hi, Daniel. Thank you for having us today. My question is, as an entrepreneur, how do you know when you have a good enough of an idea that can gain traction as a business venture?
So when people start paying you for it, right? I think up until that point, you can speculate that you have an idea, but unless someone's willing to part with their money, it's just an idea. How do you know it's going to be a good enough idea to get them to do that? You can test it, you can focus group it, but the real thing is you're better off getting it out there and just seeing if it works, right? And fast and good is better than perfect and never, right? So you're much better off getting something out there, even if it's a prototype, and just seeing hey, is this at the point which someone will pay something for it? And then iterating your way towards the perfect product or a good enough product. And the other thing is, if you do that, you can fail fast. So what people don't know me for are TakeMyStuff.com, Legal Prize, Kadoo. These are all companies I've started, by the way. They failed. I mean, Kadoo wasn't a failure. We sold it for a couple $1 million, but it wasn't like a Blackboard level or Modernizing Medicine level. And that's fine. I'm just as proud of those because they didn't work. And I just failed quickly. Like each one of those was a 6-month failure and trying to do something where, you know, in the case of Take My Stuff, the market just evaporated. During the first financial crisis, right before Modernizing Medicine, I started it was a pickup service, kind of like 1-800-GOT-JUNK, but instead of it being junk, we took all your stuff from your closets and your basements and we listed it online and picked, packaged, and shipped it and sold it and took 50%, which seems great. And there are companies that do that now. But during the financial crisis, everyone was liquidating their stuff. And so a PlayStation suddenly went for like $50 and half of $50 just wasn't worth the gas. And price of gas back then was like $5 a gallon. So it all sort of fell apart for good reasons. But fail fast. And you'll really know it when someone's willing to pay you for it. Until then, you're just speculating, which is fine too, but get it out there.
Thank you.
Let's hear from one of our Pulse Committee members from Morgan Stanley, Ross O'Connor. Ross has a question.
Hey, Jordan, thanks. Dan, thanks so much for doing this. I have 2 questions, if that's okay. The first one is, what kind of habits or behaviors have you built that you do on a consistent daily basis, maybe, that keep you sane, keep you productive, make sure things get done?
So couple things. Two most important habits I have is I am a big proponent of what I don't know if it's called this, but I call it inbox zero. So my inbox is meticulously organized and empty. And those 2 things are slightly different. So during the day, I'm not responding to things because it's interrupting, but I'm sorting what I need to get back to today, what I need to get back to next week, what I don't need to get back to at all. And so during the day, I just keep it sorted. So my inbox at any time is 8 to 10 emails. And then I answer them in batches where I block time out and I'm able to focus and really think. And again, I'm pretty good at understanding, what do I respond to in a group chat? What do I respond to in a direct message? What do I respond to as an email? Or is it something where I can already tell we're going to go back and forth, so let's just set up 10 minutes and get a video call put together. So organizing your inbox, which is for most people is kind of like organizing all of their thoughts and days and responsiveness, because as a CEO, so much gets routed into you, is key. And so whenever I see like any of my kids' inboxes, I get like dizzy. It's just vertical. They have 10,000 unread emails. I'm like, how do you live in a world where there's unread email? So I'd say that's one of the habits. And then the other thing I'd say is to keep my sanity, I do exercise. I make it a point, you know, right after I get up, brush my teeth, and then I exercise, hop in the shower. I usually do get up earlier. I've gotten up later because of COVID. But I am more rigorous about my exercise and my diet, which has been a good thing. So the only positive to come out of it is more time with my family and my better exercise routine.
Ross, did you have a second question? Or
Yeah, second question. A lot of entrepreneurs, they just have a different inherent risk tolerance than the rest of society. For you, was that something that was born, or was that something that was learned? How'd that come about?
No, I do think risk tolerance, you're sort of born calibrated, and you recalibrate as you get more experience for what's acceptable. But I think the instinct to take risk is something that you're born with. Interestingly enough, there's also an incredibly high correlation between sociopaths and CEOs. So fun fact, if you want to look that up. So I gave myself the test, and yeah, I'm not a psychopath. I'm definitely a sociopath. And I think that's normal. I don't want to say it's healthy, but the ability to understand other people's emotional state and to be, in some cases, like almost brutally cold about what needs to happen next, I think is important. And that's a little bit of risk calibration, but it's also just understanding how to separate some of the emotion of things with what needs to get done. And that doesn't mean I'm not a warm heart, thoughtful person. I am. But when it comes to the business, I can sort of take emotion aside and say, like, what do we need to be getting done right now? And how do we do it? And then I can add heart back into it and make sure we do it in the right way.
Let's hear from Amy. Oh, did you have something else, Dan?
Well, I was going to say, it's the same thing about failing fast. The worst pitfall entrepreneurs make is they can't let go of their baby. They've been working on it for 6 months, and they just think, I just need one more month. I just need one more. And they hold on to it in some cases for years. And that's where being a little bit of distance and just saying, look, this is one country where failure is not a badge of dishonor. Like, someone comes applying to a job here and says, you know, I was working at, Deloitte, I spent the last year doing a startup that me and a buddy tried to do. It didn't work. I'm like, that's awesome. Tell me all about it. It's not, what do you mean you couldn't make your startup work? Like, it's hard. And so I think in this country, it's unique. In other countries, if you raise capital and fail, you get like a black mark through your name and you can't raise capital again. Here, it's the entrepreneurs that have been successful and also those that can talk about their failures that are actually the most successful at raising more capital.
Amy?
Great. Thank you, Jordan. And good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Dan. Thanks so much for speaking with us today. I am the CEO of a fairly new organization called Philanthropy Tank, and we're going through some market expansion and growth. So I'm really curious as to maybe some comments or lessons learned as you took your organization, again, as you talked about expanding through the colleges and universities and then going internationally. So maybe some lessons learned or tips.
Sure.
Thank
So
you.
one of the things you probably noticed on the Modernizing Medicine slide was we didn't expand more than one new thing at a time, right? Sometimes we did like a new specialty and a new product, but we were very methodical about staying focused on what we were good at and being true to ourselves. Same thing with Blackboard. While in the story version, I told you, it seems like overnight we were suddenly everywhere. It wasn't like that at all. It was one country at a time, one partner at a time, one ecosystem, and it was all higher ed until we consciously said, let's do something in K-12, and then we'll consciously do something in corporate training. So I would say you really want to identify your markets very clearly. And don't delude yourself into sort of saying, well, the competitive landscape is X, but we're going to beat them, or the pricing is Y, but we can change that. Like, be just brutally honest with what the landscape looks like and your ability to drive your product and market and differentiate yourself. We let the market dictate where we go. And I think for most entrepreneurs, the ego is, you know, we can take it wherever we want to because we're so good. And you can't be that way. So one of the questions in chat was, are you going into primary care? And the short answer is not right now, because that market is saturated with hundreds of products. They've all had a race to the bottom to see who can get there cheaper. And so if you have a market that's been commoditized, even as differentiated as our product is, and it would be in primary care, there are other markets I can move into where I can charge a premium. People are willing to pay for the value. And so it just makes more sense for us to do that. It's also why we're not going international with Modernizing Medicine, because the buying power of physicians outside the US is so much lower than the buying power of physicians within the US. And so while I'd love to, like, the dreamer in me wants to change healthcare as quickly as possible everywhere. And by the way, every human on the planet suffers from the exact same diseases and has access to the same types of pharmaceuticals and procedures. So this is a company that could go international very quickly. We're staying focused. So focus is the key. Identifying your market and understanding how you're going to differentiate and writing that down, and then having other people pressure test that is essential. And I can't overstate the importance of buying third-party research to validate with your market. You will waste so much time and effort trying to move into a market that may not be right. You're always better off upfront making the investment and getting the data that clearly dictates what you should do. So every time we go into a specialty, we have spent usually a year or two buying market research, primary, of people contacting doctors in that space, asking what they're using, asking if they like it, asking when they're thinking about making a change. And so it's never been a surprise for us when we go into a new specialty because we've tested it. And that, yeah, it costs some money, but it's $50,000, $100,000 to do the research versus millions of dollars, but more importantly, time in potentially making the wrong move.
Let's hear from another one of our Pulse Committee members, Brandy Applebaum from Office Depot. Brandy, you have a question.
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you, Dan, so much for taking the time to speak to us today. I've really enjoyed hearing all that you have to share, but I really would like to know is, when you were starting out, what was the worst advice you received about how to form your business or what direction to take it or something else, and then what you actually did instead?
So the worst advice I got when I was starting Blackboard was, you should never start a business with your friends. And I think we hear that all the time. It's like almost conventional wisdom says you shouldn't do that. And so I tried to move my friends out, and they were all still in college. And I'm like, well, you guys are going to go and, graduate and get jobs at, Anderson and Deloitte and like do whatever you're going to do, because you don't want to do this with me. And I had gotten this from professors who were like, again, their wisdom was like, you shouldn't do this. Like you're going to contaminate your friends and your relationships and your work. And it was terrible advice. It created all sorts of, and it turns out my friends were all like, we're going to turn down all these job offers and we want to do this together. We just want to be, equitable in how we do it. And so I did two things differently. One, it was, I'll remember that I'm like right now I'm transported back to the room where it happened. We put it to a vote, who's staying and who wants to go, and 100, that was unanimous, everyone is staying. And so I immediately divided up the equity. Everyone got the same share. And most founders would never do that. They would say, well, it was my idea and I started it and I hired you and you just happen to be my housemates. I said to them, if you're going to do Blackboard with me, everyone's getting 10%, like 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. We're just all doing it. And it worked. And we stayed not only together for the next decade, but we've remained best friends, through all this time. We almost cheated, right? We got 4 years of college and 10 years of Blackboard together. But I think had I listened to that advice, I would have ruined both the business and the friendships. And so I think there are very few people in this world who are crazy enough to work for free on your nutty idea than your friends. Like it's almost always going to be your friend. Michael, my co-founder, is one of my best friends. And so you can absolutely do it. You just have to make sure you're equitable. And I think if you're, again, an equitable person and you divide it up the right way, you can make it work. By the way, that's not a path to maximizing money by any means. Like if it was just about the money, you would, keep all the equity yourself and not share any of it. But that just doesn't work with friends or family. So.
I think we have time for one or two more questions. Another one of our committee members, Bill Pete, Benchmark Financial. Bill?
Thank you, Jordan. Dan, thanks again for being a part of this group and taking our questions. I think that's the most valuable, is getting, to ask you Q&A and get information from your brain and your successes. So clearly Modernizing Medicine is a leader of the pack and a pioneer in your respective industry. I'm curious to know what companies, either public or private, primarily local, that you see that might be further down, the path than you guys are, whether profitability or public, that you want to implement or emulate. They are, companies that, again, are totally distinguishing themselves from the rest of the pack. They have great employee culture, best practices that you guys are trying to emulate.
So the one that really jumps to mind is Ultimate Software. And maybe I'll say Ultimate Software circa 3 years ago before they sold and went private. But that, nothing against Ultimate Software, but it changes when you go private and bring private equity in. And so the public Ultimate Software, right, which had this incredible scale, highly differentiated product, amazing award-winning culture, like great team, great product, like that is the vibe we are definitely emulating here. And it's not that we're trying to be anyone but Modernizing Medicine, but we look and feel a lot like Ultimate. And there are a number of ex-Ultimate people here, and they're like, yeah, this is a lot like what it felt like. Like and it's not about the fun or the perks or the awards. Those are part of it, but it's about doing something of consequence, right? And that's something we're actually, I think, a little bit different than Ultimate, in that we're fixing healthcare, right? They did these amazing HRIS systems, but that doesn't change. Maybe it does change the world for businesses, but changing healthcare, making it so a doctor can spend an additional 5 minutes actually talking to the patient and making that patient have that time to feel reassured. Like, you don't have to fake a mission here. Like, everyone at Modernizing Medicine wakes up every day knowing what we're doing is important and we're doing well by doing good. And so I think that, the company we really emulate most is Ultimate, but I think we are, almost in our own airspace when it comes to, aligning this culture and having a mission that really is important to do, and building 1,000 people around it.
It's funny that you say Ultimate. My wife works there, and she would probably share this similar sentiments as your comments there. But overall, great company to work with.
Amazing company, and I do think they'll get their mojo back. I think combining forces with another equal-sized company is just. We did that at Blackboard. We eventually merged with our largest competitor. And what it did from a business perspective was transformative for the industry, but that's hard to do. Hard to pull off cultural integration, hard to pull off the synergies between two companies. And so I like growing more organically with the occasional acquisition than to do put two behemoths together and try to make it work. It's possible, it's just hard.
Final question for you, and it's a good one. It's in our chat. What are some of the common attributes of your best hire?
So they all have the same exact common attribute, which is they are the embodiment of our core values, right? Our core values were not aspirational. Our core values were a reflection of what we hold to be true. And every new hire we have has to match up to those values. And that's the filter we look for. So when people say like, we're screening for culture, what that actually means is, do you embody the same cultural values of the people that are already at Modernizing Medicine? Has nothing to do with intellect, has nothing to do with EQ, has nothing to do with introversion or extroversion or you know, how you dress, what you look like. It has all to do with, do you really care about making healthcare better? Because we all do. Do you really care about doing well by doing good and innovating boldly than making things happen and you know, saving time for practices? Like, if you're the embodiment of those things, we can teach you the skills. And so that's the one common thread through Modernizing Medicine is they are a cultural fit. They are the embodiment of our values. I meet executives all the time that come to ModMed and they see the office and they feel the energy and they're like, I want to create this. We're going to rewrite our mission statement or we're going to rewrite our core values. I'm like, unless you're planning on scrapping the team and starting over, like if you want to change your culture, it comes to your people. Like your people are your culture. Like I have no magic control over 1,000 people to build kindness and to build sort of that curiosity and to build collaboration. Like they have to come that way to us, and then we can teach them the skill. Which got to Dave's earlier question on, you know, if you come to us with the skill, but you can't collaborate or integrate, or you don't hold these truths to be, you know, valid, then it's not going to work.
Well, that was really great, Dan. We really appreciate you, you know, dedicating this time. Everybody's super busy. I know to ask to do another Zoom call, like, you know, in our Zoom virtual world, but we really appreciate you dedicating some time for our group today.
Absolutely. It's been a real pleasure. And Troy and team, let's do it in less than 5 more years, right? We'll get a new crop of Pulse in, and then I'll do it again in a couple.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Well, everyone, thank you so much. I really enjoyed spending time with you, and I look to see you around town soon enough.
Absolutely. Hopefully in person. So thank you so much, Dan. Thank
great.
you, everybody.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, Troy.
Thanks,
for
Dan.
joining.
Appreciate it.
Just want to remind our next Pulse event is in April. We're going to be diving into a very important topic, and that is travel. What's it going to look like, you know, over the next couple of months? I know people are probably itching to get some places, so we'll be in touch regarding that. So look forward to that event. And I think, Troy, we'll just send everybody off. Have a great day, and you know, be smart, be healthy, and we'll talk to you soon.
See everybody soon.
Great. Thanks all.